My colleague Murray founded this organization over 20 years ago after reading a story about music in the Terezín concentration camp outside of Prague. And we are dedicated to honoring the memory of the prisoners and survivors and victims of the Terezín concentration camp and using their stories of cultural resistance against their Nazi oppressors as a catalyst to talk about the rise of anti-Semitism in the world and to learn from those lessons.
There was a great pianist in the camp named Alice Herz-Sommer who once said in an interview when somebody said, "Why did you make music in Terezín? What's the point of that?" And she said something that I'll never forget, and that inspires so much of what we do. Music prevents hatred. And I thought that that's an inspiration that really drives our foundation. It drives our education program. It drives our performances to honor the prisoners, the great musicians that were in the camp. And there were about 1,000 concerts over 2 or 3 years, plus about 2,500 lectures. It was a place of extraordinary opportunity to keep the soul alive.
Creativity. Yeah.
Creativity is what did it, absolutely. So any opportunity we have to perform music that came out of Terezín or that was especially precious to the population at Terezín, or as in this case, when we honor people who were members of that elite group of Holocaust survivors, we learned from them. You know, it says right here in the poster quoted by Anita Winter, it says, "It happened, therefore it can happen again." Once it happens, that's the doorway. And what we must do is to illuminate what happened so that it can be prevented. And in our estimation, art, music, theater, drama, these were the keys to keeping the soul alive and reinforcing the dignity of life, which meant so much to those people and was their vitamin, was their guide, was their inspiration. It was the injection of the spirit of life. Hours of Freedom tells the story of the composers who were prisoners in the camp. And people will say, well, what in the world? I mean, with all the deprivation that was going on, how in the world why would they want to compose music? And they, the prisoners, answered by saying, how can we not? That there's a secret law. I love this statement. It came from one of the composers. He said, there's a secret law that if you're creative, you must create. Not maybe I will, it's Saturday, I'll see how I feel. No, you must. You must. And not only is it the sign and symbol of beauty and creativity for the people who were there, but they hoped that this music would last, that it could be a sign, it could be a memory of what was there, that people such as we who were not there, but now we know what it was like, at least to the extent of what the creative people were trying to tell us. So Hours of Freedom is a performance of 15 compositions. And some are for piano alone, some are for a larger ensemble, some are for duets or trios or so forth. This is all music that was created there.
Written in the camp.
Written in the camp.
And saved.
And
somehow.
now that we have it, we have to perform it. Not to perform it would be to murder them a second time.
So we are very honored that Anita Winter, a Swiss citizen who lives in Zurich, has created a foundation called the Gameral Foundation. and they are dedicated to Holocaust education and to preserving the memory of survivors such as these. And the Gammarel Foundation funded this beautiful exhibit of portraits of Holocaust survivors, many of whom, and I think most of whom, were not Swiss citizens. They were born in other parts of Europe, but ultimately settled in Switzerland and lived there after the war. And Anita's foundation funded this beautiful exhibit that we brought to the concert hall and displayed these photos after the concert concluded. All of this is part and parcel of our interest to honor survivors, to tell their stories, to use those lessons as a catalyst to talk about the insidious nature of anti-Semitism and the history of the Holocaust. And with survivors really dying out now, it's been about 80 years since the war ended, it is more important than ever to keep their memory alive through music, through their portraits, through their personal stories.
We are their advocates. We are their advocates. We know something about who they were. We know something about what they said. Listen, Mr. Ehrlich here says, when I go to bed and turn off the lights, I think of my parents and my little brother. They are never apart from the tragedy of their lives. And all these people that you look at, they have a tragic vision. What they have seen, what they have heard, what they've experienced, what they know about the danger of mankind. Yes, the advocates and the beauty and the creativity of mankind, but the danger as well. And so anything we can do to illuminate what was, what can be, somewhere in the middle is what we must be, what we must create. And so that's what our foundation does. We do most of it through music, through education, because we want to go into the schools and illuminate for young people what is the best of mankind. But we can never forget what was the worst of mankind.
At the concert, we were very honored to have with us the Swiss ambassador, Ambassador Jacques Pitelot, and the Hungarian ambassador, along with our board chair, Ambassador Stuart Eisenstadt, a former ambassador to the EU from the United States. We had 4 Holocaust survivors in the audience that night, along with 50 teachers of the Holocaust from all around this country, and 23 school principals from Palm Beach County in Florida, all of whom have dedicated their lives to teaching students the stories, the memories, and the importance of never again.
We're so grateful to Anita Winter for allowing this exhibit to come here. It's a beautiful exhibit. I mean, it's beautiful to look at just as photographs. And then it's been my experience whenever I've talked to survivors of that era, you know, lots of times they avoid the subject altogether because they are so positive. Every one of them, you know, looks at life as having, you know, precious moments. They've been through this and they've come up on the other side. So let's not think back, let's not look back, let's not dwell on what was, the horror, the indecency. No, instead, let's look at my family, let's look at
the present and the future.
The present and the future.
The present and the future.
And that's our role, of course, along with, side by side, explaining and expressing and
teaching,
illuminating, you know, what could be. That's one sentence that she has up here that she quotes, "It happened, therefore it can happen again." That, I think, in such magnificent few words, it's all impacted into those few words. The danger, and look, in the world that we live in today, we have to step very lightly. It's a very fragile time.